الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So I was going to give a talk this morning about the consequences of disunity. But I figured since we started yesterday with the 10 things that divide us, that I would just continue with that and finish with that, inshallah. As for the other one, I'm guessing I'll stream it live sometime this week, inshallah. I'll just do it, from wherever my location is, inshallah. Okay, so we talked about 4 things that divide us. If anyone is here that can remember that, what was number 1? Shaitan, the chief divider. That all of the division that we experience in our communities, we have to understand that Shaitan definitely has a hand in that. He definitely has a share in that. And I mentioned examples of how Shaitan separated Adam from Jannah. He separates man from his wife. He's the chief separator and divider. And you can only imagine that the fragmentation and the discord and the separation and all of those things lead to one source, and that is the Shaitan. Number 2 was what? Say it again. Psychological conditioning. What was that? What did I mean when I said that? You got to go backwards before we can go forward. What did I mean when I say that? Can someone explain what that meant? What was here? I heard that. Psychological conditioning. How does that contribute to separation and discord? No, that was another one that we covered. Psychological conditioning. How does that contribute to discord?
Programming. Individuals programming within their condition to act and function in a particular way that would create the division and discord within the family or within the community.
Absolutely. That a person is wired to divide, to separate. His remedy or her remedy for solving problems in their lives is to just remove themselves. And we said that this is a conditioning, as the scholars they say, من تعود على الذل والمهانة لن يدرك العزة والكرامة. That whoever has been conditioned to be inferior will never know what it feels like to be superior. Will never know what it feels like to be honorable and dignified, because you haven't been conditioned to be like that. So that's not even your goal. You don't even aspire to be honorable and dignified because you've been conditioned to be inferior. It's a psychological conditioning. And it starts at home. If we grow up in homes that are fragmented and divided, that's basically our blueprint until we recognize that that is the blueprint and fix it within our own selves. We come from a culture of men running away from their families. I am a product of that. Many of you sitting right here right now are products of that. In the 60s and the 70s, it was very common for African American men to leave their families. Very common. Which is why many of us now who grew up in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, while we're still recovering from that, and we don't even know where it came from. So it forces us to go back and look at our, blueprint from our family unit and understand that this whole idea of, well, I don't want to talk with him, or I don't want to mix with him, and I don't do this with him, that mentality conflicts with what Islam tells us. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mu'min alladhi yukhalid al-nas ويصبر على أذاهم خير من المؤمن الذي لا يخالط الناس ولا يصبر على أذاهم." That the believer who mixes with the people and is patient with the harm that he receives from the people is better than the believer that does not mix with the people and is not patient with the harm that he receives from the people. So the Prophet ﷺ has given us a divine incentive to stay, despite the fact that, and He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the believer who mixes with the people and is patient with the harm that he receives from the people. That lets us know that mingling with people and staying put in an environment, right, that there is going to be challenges. Challenges because we all have a different wish of another. We all have a different paradigm. We all have a different outlook on life. Being unified doesn't mean that we want to see the world the same exact way. You grew up differently than I grew up. I grew up in a foster home. I didn't meet my father until I was 10 years old in prison. You put someone like that in an environment with someone who grew up with both parents in the home. There was a loving relationship in the home, siblings, and it was a thriving family. You put us in the same room together, we are not going to see the world the same way. We see the world totally different. And we're going to face challenges based upon what our defense mechanisms that we developed in the environments that we grew up in. However, when we come into Islam, and Islam says that you guys should be united, this is the way the community should look, has given us the blueprint for all of that. We don't change Islam to fit our family dynamic in the way that we grow up. We change the way that we grow up and our outlook on life to fit Islam. You follow me? And we've been doing that, which is why we have seen, I don't want to say we haven't been successful, but we've seen very little success in our communities in terms of the social development of our communities. As Imam Abu Muslim mentioned, it's like as soon as we run into problems, we fragment. We go off, I'm going to open up my own masjid, I don't agree with this imam said. Sometimes the imams don't agree with what they say. Sometimes I give a lecture, and then I go back and I listen to it and I say, you know what, I don't know why I said that. Maybe I could have said that a little differently. If that's the way that I feel about myself, how could I expect everyone sitting in front of me to agree with everything that I say? But there's also a flip side to that, and that is that if I'm saying things that people disagree with, and people are bringing me grievances, and it doesn't necessarily have to be rooted in the Quran and Sunnah. Maybe your delivery, your style, your usloob it doesn't resonate with people because maybe your usloob is based upon where you came from. Your delivery of Islam most of the time is you. That's you. The information is the information. It's the Quran and the Sunnah. Last check. But the delivery of that information to people, that's not Quran and Sunnah for the most part. That's mixed Quran and Sunnah along with your own personal growth and development. And it changes from one stage to another. If you heard me give a lecture 10, 15 years ago, I sound totally different today than I did 15 years ago. That's because my life experiences, my worldview, the places I've traveled and the people I've seen and places I've visited have all helped to shape and develop and mature me so that my delivery could be more in sync with the Quran and the Sunnah. So both those things have to be looked at from both angles. But the fragmentation and the separation and the division, it's not helping us. It's not helping us. Number 3 from the matters that divide us, I said was what? The ego. Ego plays a very big, part and I'm saying more so for the leadership. Ego plays a very big part in the further fragmentation and the division of our communities. Which is why, as I mentioned in the last lecture, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives such a great reward for the person who was able to suppress their ego. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا. That this is the home of the hereafter that we have prepared for the one who does not seek superiority in the earth, nor fasad, nor corruption. That you suppress that. The Prophet ﷺ said, أنا زعيم ببيت في ربض الجنة لمن ترك المراء وإن كان محقا. He said, I can guarantee a house in the middle of Jannah for the person who can give up argumentation and debating even if he's right. But sometimes we have to be right, and even in being right, we end up being wrong. You are the superhero so long, you actually end up becoming the villain. Because this trajectory of being right all the time and making your opinion supersede the opinion of everyone else, it ends up making you the enemy. While the person doesn't even realize that. Ego is very dangerous, man. And in this position right here, this platform right here, make no mistake about it, ego runs rampant. I've been in meetings, rooms, sit-downs where men cannot even sit next to each other and talk out their differences because the egos in the room is so big. It's not enough room. It's not enough chairs in the room for the egos. 10 chairs for 10 imams, but you need another 10 because each and every one of them comes with their own brand of ego. So it's not enough room, it's not enough seats in the room for the egos. And as a result of that, you all, the community, hurts the most as a result of that. And sometimes it can come upon you. Sometimes people don't come into this with the intention of being superior and the intention of being dominant. And that's as a result of not knowing how to humble yourself. Everybody believes that they are going to be the game changer. You're not the game changer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who changes the condition. You're just grateful that Allah chose you to be, an accomplice in that, to use you and assist you. And it's just, I'm just glad to be here. I'm just grateful for this position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using me to help create change in our communities. Not that my opinion has to be the only opinion. And that has fragmented us on so many levels, man. I'm sorry, I'm one of those people, man. I'm not in this for popularity contest. I'm not in this for popularity. I don't care about the, popularity. I duck and dodge the crowd when I go out. I don't want to be a part of that. I'm an introvert. I play like, I can handle all of this, but I can't. I don't like talking to people. I'm just honest with you. I don't. I would much rather go in a corner somewhere and be by myself, and I'm cool with that. But there's some people who live for this. And without it, they would be irrelevant. Which is why when the time comes for a person to pass the torch and move on to another phase of their lives, they can't. And so you stay and you begin to infringe on other younger, students and others coming along that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to use them to change the condition, but you now become the obstacle. You become the obstacle. And I just pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows me to recognize when my time is up and walk away. I can hand you your mic back, here you go. Keep it moving. Number 4, from the things that fragment us and divide us and separate us, was the divide and conquer, the old divide and conquer that is usually used by the hegemony, the dominant culture. And I mentioned the story of Musa alayhi salam, the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ بِذَبْحِ أَبْنَائِهِمْ. That Shaitan ala fil ard, Shaitan sought to make himself superior in the earth. وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. And he made the people of the earth into different groups. Classism, as we call it today. Different classes and groups, يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ, marginalizing one group from amongst them, who were the Israelites, by killing off their males and letting their females live. And notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, يَسْتَضْعِفُ. He's weakening and marginalizing one group, because when you get rid of the men of any particular culture or society, that is the way that you weaken them. And as I said, that this allows for the political machine to continue in its dominance, because it is a united minority against a divided majority. And the moment that we love unity more than we love disunity, we will see that we have power. Unity breeds stability. Unity breeds stability. As I said last night, many people came here not necessarily for the lectures. We've heard 1,000 lectures throughout our lives. I personally am, the whole lecture circuit thing, I'm more of discussions at this point, interactive discussions, not necessarily didactic lectures. I personally can't even sit for a didactic lecture. I'm sorry. You got about 5 minutes of my attention, especially if what you're saying is not relevant to my particular life. Mentally, I'm gone. I'm sitting here physically, but mentally, I'm somewhere totally different. But unity breeds stability. And we learn this from the two men that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aided this ummah with, and there was no third along with them. Ali ibn Madini, one of the great scholars of hadith, he said, أيد الله هذا الدين برجلين لا ثالث لهما أبو بكر الصديق يوم الردة وأحمد بن حنبل يوم المحنة. Ali ibn Madini, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aided this religion with two men and there was no third alongside of them. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq yawm al-Ridda, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq on the day of apostation. Wa Imam Ahmad yawm al-Mihna, the day of the trial. The day of apostation is the very next day after the Prophet ﷺ came from the night journey. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alluded to it in the first ayat of Surah Al-Isra, where he said, glory be to the one who took his servant, لَيْلًا مِنَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ الْأَقْصَى الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا لِنُرِيَهُ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا. That praise be to Allah, or greatness be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glory be to Allah who took his servant in one night from Masjid al-Haram in Mecca ila Masjid al-Aqsa, to Masjid Aqsa in Palestine, so that we could show him our signs. And the Prophet ﷺ made the night ascension, which we know as Isra and Mi'raj. When the Prophet ﷺ returned back from that mission, he was forced with the task of going in front of everyone and telling them what he just did. And this was a trial, and this is how information can become a fitna for people. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبد لكم تسؤكم. Don't ask about things that when it's made clear to you, it's going to cause you problems. You asking about what's the next step here. If someone was to give you the next step and then you can't fulfill that next step, then you're blameworthy. Don't ask about something that when it's made clear to you, you're going to have a problem with it. The Sahaba kept asking Allah, reveal the ayah for jihad. We want to fight, we want to fight. And then when Allah revealed the ayah for jihad, some people had fear in their hearts. They became cowardly. And that was the reason why Allah revealed that ayah. Don't ask about things that when it's made clear to you, it's going to be a problem for you. Let things flow in their natural state and just move with it as it moves. We're right here, right now, in this very moment. I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. I don't know what tomorrow holds for us as a community in terms of our cooperation, our cohesion, our moving forward. I don't, but I know right now. I know what it looks like right now. I'm one of those people, I live in my moment. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I don't live my life like that. I live my life in the moment that I'm in right here at that moment. Because that's the only thing that I have control over. What happens tomorrow, wallahu a'lam. Who knows? I've been around long enough to see many fitness come through our communities. And so while I'm hopeful, while I'm optimistic, I know what lurks on the other side of optimism. I know what's on the other side. And I know that many of our hearts are not firm enough at this point to stand on our own 2 feet and confront the challenges that are standing in front of us. We buckle under pressure, man. Because our leaderships, many in the past, have stolen that from us. They haven't empowered us. They fed us information for their own, for their own egos, but haven't empowered us so that we could stand. The Prophet ﷺ empowered the Sahaba. So even in his absence, they were able to stand on their own 2 feet. We don't have that because our leaders, they usurp all of our energy for their own egos and then leave you depleted with nothing but a bunch of useless information that you don't even know how to apply in your life. Where's the application of it? How is that implied? How does that apply? How do I apply that? How do I implement that? You just receive a hadith and just walk away while you quoted the hadith. Yeah, but what does that look like in real time? That's empowerment. That is education. But Imam Ahmad, the Prophet ﷺ, when he returned back from Isra and Miraj, he told everyone that he went from Mecca to Jerusalem in one night. Some people were like, listen, we're nomads. We know the desert better than anybody. And it's a known fact that it takes at least 2 weeks on the fastest camel to go from Mecca to Jerusalem. And you're saying you went in one night? I can't accept that. And many people started to leave Islam. This was just another way that the hegemony, the dominant culture in Mecca, could separate and fragment what was going on, which is what happens now. But you heard what the Sheikh said about him, though, right? So now you're forced to either go with your better conscience or to be in fear and go with what was projected on you. They said, you know, we're nomads. We live in the desert. You know that it takes 2 weeks. You're telling me you believe Muhammad went from Mecca to Jerusalem in one night? Come on, you don't believe that? And many of them started to apostate from Islam. They went to Abu Bakr. They figured the most influential from amongst the Sahaba, if we could get him to disbelieve in Muhammad, then we would have to worry about nothing else. Which is why when you find students of knowledge, attacking one another or whatever, you have to understand that there's a bigger plot. Because if we can get another student to go against another student, then we can the weak hearts of the lay people will just crumble under that pressure. And this is what happens. So they figure, let's get Abu Bakr to go against the Prophet ﷺ. If we can get him to say that he doesn't believe in that, then we don't have to worry about anybody else. So they went to Abu Bakr and they said, هَلْ لَكَ يَا أَبَا بَكْرٍ مَا قَالَ صَاحِبُ. What? Did you hear what your companion said? And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, he said, إِنْ قَالَهُ فَقَدْ صَدَقَ. I don't care what he said. If he said it, it's the truth. That's the yaqeen. That's the certainty that we have to be able to function with. I don't care what was said. I'm not going to let some foreign imported concepts come into my community after I've lived with these brothers for years. I've traveled, I made Hajj with these brothers. I had people that were, wallahi, I made Hajj, I made Umrah with, would walk past me, wouldn't even give me salams. It's like we made Hajj together. We made Umrah together. Am I not at least deserving of the salam? You can say, I don't take from you. Cool. I don't have a problem with that. But am I not at least due the bare minimum of what a Muslim is due? That doesn't count for anything? Nothing. Burn his books, burn his CDs. And this is the person who, subhanAllah, as dudes I jailed with. I was in prison with you, dude. You was there the day I took my shahada. And would flip on you. The smallest little fatwa emerges, you flip. You change your whole paradigm. That is a lack of stability, man. And that's a problem. That you can throw any type of information out there amongst these people and you'll have them flip-flopping all over the place. No stability. And I personally blame our leadership. Because they didn't empower us. Because if we were empowered, we would have known better. I'm not saying all of it falls on them, but a large part of it does. Absolutely. Those who were leaders at the times, when those, and I mean, even if we could say leadership, because we use terms like students of knowledge, imam, and those are all deflective terms, which means that I'm just responsible for this little niche over here. When you say I am a leader in the Islamic community, that puts you on a whole other status, and it gives you a whole other level of responsibility. But when you say I'm just a student of knowledge, and that means I'm just going to carve out my little niche over here. I'm going to just focus on teaching Kitab al-Tawheed. I'm going to focus on teaching Usul al-Thalat. And that's basically it. That's my role. That's my responsibility. When imams come home, I remember sitting with one of the scholars, without mentioning, I hate name dropping, so I just say one of the scholars, one of the mashaykh. One day we were sitting at his house, and he said, you know, you brothers that are graduating from here, going back to America, to the UK, he said, you guys are actually on like the path of the prophets and messengers. He said, because you're not going home like some of the other Arabs that are going back to Tunisia, going back to Libya, going back to Syria, going back to wherever. They're going to go back and just start driving cabs and be regular people because they have imams in their communities. So they graduate from the Islamic University with a bachelor's degree and they return to their community as a layperson. Because everybody in their community know exactly what they're studying. We have people who came to the Islamic University already, Hafid Quran. From Nigeria, Hafid Quran. West Africans, Hafid Quran, they just come into the university to get some additional information and live a little bit in the Prophet's Masjid and, enjoy life. We come in, don't know anything, a lemon from the lemon. We don't know nothing. And then we're returning home and, assuming these positions of, you're not just an imam, you're just not a student of knowledge, you're fathers. You're fathers to children who don't have fathers. You're husbands to women who don't have husbands. This is where that entitlement comes from. And I get it, I understand. You feel entitled. But it puts the person in the leadership position that they may not be ready to deal with that level of entitlement. Some people are uncomfortable with that, which is why it's very difficult for you to get in touch with them, because they can't handle that. So you're not just returning home to be the imam of the community and that's it. You're returning home to be people's fathers, people's, husbands, your husbands to, it's people that I interact with that's not my wife that I'm like, damn, are we in a relationship? It's like you emailing me back and forth and I got to do this for you and do that. And no disrespect. I'm just saying from my perspective, I get it. But I'm saying the position that it puts me in. And unfortunately, that type of attention, if it's put into the wrong hands, obviously going to end up hurting you. Because if I didn't see you as a human being like myself with the hurt and the pain and all of the things that you go through, right, then I would exploit you for my own personal reasons. So stop putting yourself in a position to be exploited. When you come off vulnerable, right, as I say all the time, if you act like a sheep, you attract wolves. If you act like a sheep, you attract wolves. Meaning if you play yourself as you're vulnerable, damsel in distress, you need so much help, you're going to attract the wrong person who's going to exploit you and take advantage of you. And trust, there are tons of students of knowledge who will take advantage of you. So Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala said that if the Prophet ﷺ said it, it's the truth. I don't even have to hear what he said. That's the level of yaqeen that kept the community stable. And when people saw Abu Bakr not budging, then now they became more stable. And so this is how unity breeds stability. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, the same thing. Imam Ahmad was in prison for not saying that the Quran was created, holding fast to the belief of Ahlul Sunnah that the Quran is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, minhu bada'a wa ilayhi ya'ud. From him it began and to him it will return. And it is not the created. It's not created, it's the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was in prison and he was lashed. And one of his students came to visit him in prison. And they asked Imam Ahmad, he asked him, are you Abu Abdullah? Are you Abu Abdullah? And Imam Ahmad said, yes. He said, there's people outside waiting. He said, take a look out of your prison cell and take a look outside. Imam Ahmad looked outside and he saw Jam'un min al-nas. He saw just a huge gathering of people. And Imam Ahmad told him, go ask them what they're waiting for. So he went outside and he asked them, why are you all here? They had pins in one hand and lohas in the other hand, or they were going to use the right one. And he asked them, what are you waiting for? They said, we're waiting to see what Ahmad ibn Hanbal says about the Quran so we can write it down and follow it. And he went back inside and he asked him, and he told Imam Ahmad why they were here. Imam Ahmad looked at him and he said, أَضِلُّ هَؤُلَاء كُلَّهُمْ? Am I going to lead all of them astray? He said, "Aqtul nafsi wa la udillu ha'ula." I will kill myself before I will lead these people astray. Because initially he told him, Allah says in the Quran, don't kill yourselves. Just say the Quran is created and get yourself out of the situation. Imam Ahmad said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to lead all of these people astray to save my life. He could have simply said, like many other scholars said, the Quran is created, just to get himself out of the situation. He said, am I going to lead all of them astray to save my life? He said, Wallahi, I will kill myself before I lead these people astray. And when they saw Imam Ahmad remain firm, and they remained firm on the belief that the Quran was not created. Unity breeds stability. Number 5, and you can see at the rate we're going, we're not going to finish. Number 5, this is a big one that continues to fragment us and to separate us and divide us, is allegiance to a particular scholar, imam, opinion, legal or otherwise. When we start having this wala wal bara, this allegiance to this particular imam and scholar, when I became Muslim, this was very popular. With all due respect, many of you were around in the early 2000s, late 1990s, and when everything first jumped off with Abu Muslim, you had a lot of people who had allegiance to him, almost like bay'ah, almost like you pledged allegiance to his leadership. And this is not what is expected, Jazakallah khair. This is not what is expected of us as believers. We follow the person when they write, and we leave alone the person, not necessarily the person, but we don't accept it when it's wrong. What's right is right, and we accept that, and what's wrong is wrong, and we reject that, regardless of who it is. And some people get to a point where they can do no wrong. And that is blind following. This is blind allegiance to a person, a sheikh, an imam, an opinion, and this is the thing that further fragments us. Because in that person's mind, this individual can do no wrong. And I will give my life for this person. And this creates what I said last night, this creates what is called ta'assub, fanaticism. We become fanatic about this imam or this sheikh. This is my sheikh. Mashallah, I follow this particular sheikh. Okay, you're entitled to do that, but that doesn't mean that if the person errs, and everyone makes mistakes. There's no one that is infallible. And it's almost sometimes that we have raised scholars to the level of prophets and messengers. Ibn Qayyim has a passage in one of his books called Zallatul Alam, the mistakes of a scholar. Mistakes of a scholar. He said that the scholar may make a mistake and then later on in his life come across correct information and repent. But you will be tested with the mistake of the scholar because you might not have known that he has made a mistake, and you might not have known that he made tawbah and repented. So while he died making tawbah, you died following, being fanatic about his opinions. Dangerous, man. Dangerous. He issues a fatwa, and then right before he dies, he makes tawbah for all of the things that he did and said, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him. You fanatic about the sheikh, you carry on these fatwas later on, years later in his life. As some people still ride in the wave of previous, antiquated, ancient praises of scholars for these group or these people. What Sheikh Rabia said about me in 2000. The Sheikh Rabia said about me in that was 1998. We in 2017 going into 2018. You still ride in antiquated praises of scholars. And you're going to keep using that because that's what keeps you relevant. What should make you relevant is not the praises of any scholars. What makes you relevant is the information that you are able to convey to people and the practicality of the information that you are conveying to people. That's what makes you relevant. You can't say nothing of relevance, of substance to people, and then turn around and then use an antiquated fatwa, antiquated praise of a scholar to maintain your relevance. And that's what people do. Oh, this sheikh said this, let me translate what the sheikh said about me in 2000. What are you doing now? Salman al-Farisi he migrated to Damascus after the death of the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Darda. The Prophet made a special pact of brotherhood between them. And Abu Darda he was an ascetic, one of them very religious people, right? The Prophet ﷺ said that if you put Abu Darda over, the zakat, wealth, he would give it all away sadaqah. Like that's the type of person that he was. So he wrote a letter to Salman al-Farisi telling him, come back to Medina. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever has the ability to die in Medina, let him do so. And Salman responded back with a letter. He said, Inna al-ard la tuqaddisuni, innama yuqaddisuni amali. He said, there's no particular place in the earth that can sanctify me. I'm a sinner no matter where I go, and I'm righteous no matter where I go. There's no particular part of the earth that sanctifies me. The only thing that sanctifies me is my deeds. No matter where I go. I'm not righteous because I live in Medina. I'm not righteous because I live in Mecca. I'm righteous because I'm righteous no matter where I am. And I'm sinful no matter where I am. Whether you're in Mecca or Medina, you're a sinner, you're a sinner. It doesn't matter where you are. So the point that I'm making is that it's not about this person saying this about you or that person saying that about you. I remember when everything was kind of jumping off with me and the brother was like, you need to go to some of the sheikhs and get some fatwas, in defense of you. I'm like, man, I'm not doing that, man. I'm going to go to a sheikh and beg him to say something nice about me, translate it, and put it on the internet so people can think that I'm okay? You have got to be kidding me. That is a sick mentality, man. That is a sick mentality. I'm okay with you saying whatever you're saying about me because I'm collecting all of your hasanat and I'm good on that. That's enough for me. I don't need to prove to you anything. You are entitled to believe whatever you want to believe. But the fanaticism to a particular scholar or opinion, legal or otherwise, it creates ta'assub, right? Excessive and often misguided fanaticism. And ta'assub leads to another issue which is called tahazzub, which is sectarianism, where you begin to break up into different groups and sects based upon your fanaticism. So you can see the pattern here. And this pattern has been used for years. We show fanaticism to this particular imam. This imam separates from that imam or that group, and we follow him. So now we are hizb. Hizbiyun. We now become sectarians, breaking off in different sects and groups, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemned in the Quran. And all of it is based upon your love of this sheikh and your hate of that sheikh and your love of this person or the hate for that person, your love for this opinion and your hate for that opinion, all of which is condemned in the Quran and the Sunnah. Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala said, كُلٌّ يُؤْخَذْ مِنْ قَوْلِهِ أَوْ يُرَدْ إِلَى صَاحِبُ هَذَا الْقَبْرِ وَأَشَارَ إِلَى قَبْرِ النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said, everyone's statement can be accepted or rejected. Everybody's opinion can be accepted or rejected. You come to me and you say, this sheikh gave this opinion about this person. I have a right, a God-given right to say, I don't agree with that particular sheikh's opinion. I don't. And I'm not going to accept that. Especially if it's not based upon any dalil. Scholars' reputations used to be saturated with dalil. Today, it's just, oh, he's a deviant. That's it. And the reason why it got to that point, because we stopped asking for dalil. We stopped asking for dalil. We stopped asking Sheikh, well, where is that in the Quran and the Sunnah? We stopped asking. And as it is in any situation, closed mouth don't get fed. If you don't ask for it, then necessarily you must be ignorant. And I'm just going to give you my opinion on this person, and you accept it. And we accepted that status. But Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala said everyone's statement could be accepted or rejected except the statement of a man in that grave right there, and he pointed to the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the only man's statement that has to be accepted unconditionally. The only man in this world who you can bring me an authentic narration from him, ala rats wal ayn, as Arab said. Hands down, it's accepted unconditionally. That is the only man in the world who you can bring me a statement and I have to accept it unconditionally. anyone else less than him, and they understood that. Let me give you a statement from Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. It's probably going to blow your mind. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَلَيْسَ لِأَحَدٍ أَنْ يَنْصِبْ شخصا يدعو إلى طريقته ويوالي ويعادي عليها غير النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said it is not permissible for anyone, to set up a personality or an individual and call to his path and show allegiance and disassociation based upon his path other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one. You can't raise anybody up in our ummah, call to his way, and show allegiance to it based upon it, and show disassociation with people who are not upon that path other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Haram. My Jews. He said, وَلَيْسَ لِأَحَدٍ أَنْ يَنْصِبْ لِلْأُمَّةِ كَلَامًا يَدْعُو إِلَيْهِ وَيُوَالِي وَيُعَادِي عَلَيْهِ غَيْرَ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَمَا اجْتَمَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْأُمَّةِ. He said, nor is it permissible for anyone to be set up, any personality, any opinion to be set up, for people to follow that opinion, and to show allegiance to that opinion, and to show disassociation from people who don't agree with that opinion, other than the speech of Allah and the speech of His Messenger, and that which our Ummah has considered as a consensus. No opinion. He said, بل هذا من فعل أهل البدع الذين ينصبون لهم شخصا أو كلاما يفرقون به بين الأمة يوالون على ذلك الكلام أو تلك السنة ويعادون عليه. He said, rather, this is the way of the people of innovation. Pot calling the kettle black. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. So the whole time, people have been calling you deviants. You are astray, you are the people of innovation. They were the ones that was committing innovation. But when you don't know the sunnah, bid'ah actually becomes sunnah. You see that? When you don't know what sunnah is, when somebody does an innovation, that innovation becomes sunnah. And then the sunnah actually becomes innovation, because when somebody comes along later on and say, that's bid'ah, this is actually the sunnah, we say, no, that's bid'ah, this is the sunnah, because that's what you were cultivated on. You understand? He said, بَلْ هَذَا مِنْ فِعْلِ أَهْلِ الْبِدْعِ. This is from the actions or the behavior of the people of innovation. To raise an individual or to raise an opinion amongst the people, and to show allegiance to that opinion or that individual, and to disassociate with anybody who doesn't agree with that individual or that opinion. This is from the way of the people of innovation. Those who erect an individual personality or an opinion, and they separate and divide the ummah based upon that individual and based upon that opinion. This is what has been done to us. Make no mistake about that. Because when some of them say the scholars, they mean 2 or 3 scholars. Make no mistake about that. When they say the scholars, when they say, oh, the scholars have warned against him. There's only one scholar that has ever said anything against me personally. And that's Sheikh Ubaid al-Jabari, Hafidhullah ta'ala. No scholars. There's no S on the end of that. But we'll use the general terms, right? Because as a minority, you got to make yourself look like the majority. So you got to use words, phrases, catchphrases that make yourself look bigger than what you really are. You're warning against the Salafis. No, I warned against you, not the Salafis. Or he spoke against the Salafis. No, I didn't speak against the Salafis. I spoke against you. You don't represent the Salafis, but you are a minority. Loud minority, and you have to make yourself look big, so you put the S on the end of everything. Figure the game out, man. Stay woke. Stay woke. If you have not figured this game out by now, and I'm taking it that the reason that you're here is because you see it. But for those that are on Periscope, figure the game out, man. Understand you've been played once again. Your education has been handed to you by your oppressor. Take a second to let that sink in. Because it can take a lifetime for information to reach here and here. This short distance right here, sometimes it can take you 60 years for that information to go here. And that's a short distance. But it's very long to someone who has no connection between their ear and their heart. And another statement, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said, وَكَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ فِيهِمْ مِنَ الْغُلُوفِ شُيُوخِهِمْ مِنْ جِنْسِ مَا فِي الشِّيعَةِ مِنَ الْغُلُوفِ أَئِمَّتِهِمْ. He said, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said that some people, كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ, many people have ghulu, have extreme fanaticism towards their scholars, much like the Shia have extreme fanaticism to their scholars. The Shia raise their imams to be above praying and fasting. They reach the level of yaqeen. They don't even have to pray and fast anymore. He said, and some people have the same level of fanaticism and extremism towards their scholars, just like the Shia. You are no different than they are. And some of these individuals, absolutely. They wouldn't even go to their own non-Muslim mother's funeral. But if one of their sheikhs die overseas, they'll be on the first thing smoking in Saudi Arabia. You ain't even go to your mother's funeral. A woman who is responsible after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your existence. Because she's a kafir. But the sheikh died, you buying a ticket to Saudi Arabia. Even if you got to beg, borrow, and steal, you'll get there. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Number 6. Disregarding our need for leadership and governance of our own affairs. As a result of this, we import individuals and concepts and mentalities that contribute to our fragmentation and division of our communities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as such. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. The Prophet ﷺ was described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Listen to the description that Allah gave him. He said, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. There has come to you a messenger from amongst yourselves. Meaning the Arabs. Meaning Bani Hashim. People of Mecca. There has come to you a messenger from amongst yourselves. عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. He is grieved over any challenges or difficulties that you encounter. Harisun alaykum. He is diligent to see you guided. وَبِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and to the believers, ra'ufun rahim. He is compassionate and merciful. This ayat, man, subhanallah al-azim. Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, if a da'i, if an imam, student of knowledge, a caller to Islam, does not meet this description, فَلْيَمْكُثْ فِي بَيْتِهِ. Now let him stay in his house. You're not fit to give da'wah. If you do not meet the qualifications as in this ayah that Allah described the Prophet ﷺ with, he said, فَلْيَمْكُثْ فِي بَيْتِهِ. Stay in your house, man. Don't give da'wah. So let's go dissect this ayah line for line. Allah said, there has come to you a messenger from amongst yourselves. He knows your language. He knows your culture. He understands you as a people. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. He is grieved by the difficulties and the challenges that you face. If our leaders do not suffer because we are suffering, then stay in your house, man. How can you disassociate yourself from the pain of the people that you are serving? I'm good. That's your problem. Right. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. You are that cold that you can disassociate yourself from the pain of the people that you are serving. You don't feel any pain when you see communities fragmented, when you see children, going, rotating from home to home to home because the woman, she's lost her stability because of the stability of the community. So she's looking for the stability through the men that she keep marrying. Because if there was a strong community, a lot of our sisters wouldn't be desperate for a husband. You would be cool being single because you come from a community where there's stability there. But you're searching for the stability through these sorry behind men that you keep marrying and introducing your children to. Searching for stability. Because there's no stability in the community. When you look at many of the Sahabiyat, many of these women were not starving for a man.
Just turning them down.
Because they were in a community where there was stability, and they waited patiently until they were recognized by the right man for the right reasons. And they were married and they lived. But here in this situation, because there is no stability, you have many of our sisters who have children. I'm looking for a man to be, and then you marry a boy and he's playing video games with your kid instead of teaching him how to be a man.
See that?
He's teaching him how to get a job instead of teaching him how to be an entrepreneur. Work with your hands and make your own money. That's a problem. And that's as a lack of leadership. And that's not me criticizing anybody in particular. I'm just saying in general, as someone who converted to Islam and came into this mess that we've made of these communities, man. Holding a mirror up to ourselves, man. It's not leadership. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. He is grieving over any challenges or difficulties that you face. Harisun alaykum. He is diligent to see you guided. No matter what the challenges that stand in front of you, he is still going to make sure that he gives you the empowerment, the enlightenment, the knowledge that you need to be guided. Bil mu'mineen, and to the believers, he is compassionate and merciful. That is the blueprint for leadership in our communities. That's the blueprint. And Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, said if the imam, the da'i, does not meet these qualifications, famkuth fi baytik. Stay in your house, man. Don't step out in the field and give da'wah. Don't step out in the field and give da'wah because you're giving da'wah for your own selfish personal reasons. And doing what we do, you never get paid enough. You never get enough sleep. You never get time to yourself. It is a burden. It comes with a price. And you can't carve out your little niche and say, I'm only going to give this much of myself. You can't do that. The needs of the people supersede your needs for your own personal. That's a tough pill to swallow, man, and some people are just not built for this. Not only that, as a leader, you have to continuously educate your own self because the needs of the people begin to increase. And sometimes beyond what our capacity will allow us to fulfill. And we have to know how to delegate. We have to know how to say, that is beyond, my pay grade. That's beyond me. Let me introduce you to somebody that can help you with that. Because you realize that this is over my head. Not that I'm going to tackle everything that comes my way because I'm the leader. And then you end up causing more harm than you do good. And the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was from amongst them solidified his concern for their affairs. When you're from amongst the people, then you're concerned about them because you understand these struggles. You come from where they come from. He understood their needs and was a benefit to their interests. And for years we have denied, much to our own detriment, scholarship and leadership in our communities. We will not acknowledge, I don't care how long a brother studied, he can come home after being gone for 20 years. He's still not a scholar in our eyes. Who is he? Who he studied with? And we asking all of these different credentials and qualifications. And what qualifications do you have to even qualify somebody to be a leader?
MashaAllah.
Who the heck are you? Where did he study? Where did you study? You got a high school diploma talking about where somebody studied.
Don't get that.
You got a GED talking about where somebody studied. Where did you study to even qualify somebody to be even considered qualified for leadership? It's crazy, man. Who did he study with? As if you know, well, he studied with this sheikh and that sheikh. Okay, well, I don't know that sheikh. MashaAllah. You don't know that sheikh. Okay, so we should deny him his rightful place in leadership because he studied with some sheikhs that you don't know. MashaAllah. Genius, man. Genius. We got some geniuses amongst us. But we've denied our own detriment, scholarship and leadership in our communities, no matter how high in the world of academia one climbs, we will never be good enough. We will never be good enough to serve you. Because quite frankly, some of you look at leadership and you look down upon the leadership because the person doesn't have this car, doesn't live in this home, or doesn't live in this condition, right? I was in communities where people would look down on the imam. It's like, how in the world are you supposed to get services from somebody that you don't even respect? How is the imam supposed to lead and do his job when you're trying to lead people who don't even respect you? We don't respect anybody. Ask you right now in this room, who are your leaders? Someone comes and say, well, who's the leaders in the Muslim communities here? Who would you... Everybody gonna stand up and say, I'm the leader of my own self. We selfish. We don't want to relinquish that to anybody. Because we think, your progress means my failure. So if we give him the leadership position, then that means, well, who am I? Right? And no matter what the situation is, leadership is a necessary component for the unity of any community. All right? Even in matters as insignificant as traveling, the Prophet ﷺ instructed people to have a leader. The Prophet ﷺ, on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا خَرَجَ ثَلَاثَةٌ فِي سَفَرٍ فَلْيُؤْمَرُ أَحَدُهُمْ Rawahu Abu Dawud. The Prophet ﷺ said, if 3 of you are traveling, then 1 of you should be elected as the Amir, the leader. And that's 3 of you traveling. How much more should it be in a community? You have people who actually say, self-deluded, there's no scholars in America. There's no scholars in America. We follow the scholars in Saudi Arabia. It's like, but dude, you don't even know Arabic. How you follow the scholars in Saudi Arabia? Like genius, man, mashallah. You follow the sheikhs. I had a brother tell me, I don't listen to the da'is in America. I only listen to the scholars. I said, really? I said, where you find their lectures at? Sometimes I can be really sarcastic. I said, where you find the lectures at? He said, the lectures is on YouTube. I said, all of the lectures of the scholars on YouTube? Do you even know Arabic? You listening to translated lectures on YouTube, talking about you don't take from any of the dua in America, you only take from the scholars. MashaAllah. You just shake your head, man. I feel sorry for you. I really do. I really do. And one doesn't necessarily have to be the most intelligent nor the most knowledgeable in order to champion the stability in the community. All right? And this is not necessarily what leadership represents, that the person is the most knowledgeable. We sitting here having arguments I know all of the speakers sitting on the stage, people having arguments, who's the most knowledgeable on the stage. It doesn't matter who's the most knowledgeable. Everyone has their own little niche that they're comfortable in, and they stay within their realm of competency, and that's sufficient. That's sufficient. Person doesn't have to be mutabahar, just knowledgeable in every single sphere of Islam. There's only once in a lifetime an individual comes along and he opens his mouth. He's knowledgeable about everything. That's a rarity. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when he got on the mimbar after he became the Khalifa, he gave a very profound khutbah, very humbling khutbah. He began by saying, Ya ayyuhan nas, inni wulitu alaykum wa lastu bi khayrikum. He said, I was placed over you, but I'm not the best from amongst you. Meaning this was not something that I chose. People chose me. The Prophet ﷺ chose me. It's not something that I chose. Inni wulitu alaykum. I was placed over you. Wa lastu bi khayrikum. And I am not the best from amongst you. He said, فَإِنْ أَحْسَنْتُ فَأَعِينُونِي. If I do good as your leader, then aid me, assist me. He said, وَإِنْ أَسَأْتُ فَقَوِّمُونِي. He said, and if I err, straighten me out. Meaning, I'm going to make mistakes. Just fix me, straighten me out. But if I'm doing good, aid me. Why go against me if I'm doing the right thing? And this is what we do with our leadership. Because they're never good enough for us. We look for the flaws. We look for the mistakes. And as a result of that, we become self-destructive as a people, man. And we blame everybody else for our failures, man. And although Abu Bakr said this out of humility, because we don't believe that there was anyone more knowledgeable or better after the Prophet ﷺ other than Abu Bakr, however, he was not going to deny that there might have been someone from amongst them, from amongst the Sahaba, who may have had, some knowledge and could probably do just as good a job as he was going to do. He didn't deny that. You had Abu Hurairah, you had Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As, you had many of the youth from the Sahaba who were far more knowledgeable in terms of amassing the amount of hadith. But at the same token, he didn't dismiss that. And sometimes as leaders, we can't dismiss, the genius in our communities. We can't dismiss that. We put ourselves up, we prop ourselves up like we're the imam, we're the end-all, be-all, the buck stops with us. And the fact of the matter is that our ability to be effective is only within a very small capacity. How many of you in here are mental health people, counselors, psychologists? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hands went up. You understand? That's what I'm talking about. All the mental health issues in our communities. We got 8 people in the room right now that are mental health clinicians, certified and otherwise, that I know for sure nobody that was on this panel has those qualifications, including myself. I dabble here and there, but I'm not certified as a clinician. But you are. So when people walk into the imam's office and have mental health issues, then you are the people that the imam needs to reach out to. Abu Bakr said that I was placed over you, but I'm not the best from amongst you. I'm not the most knowledgeable from amongst you. Where are my finance guys? People who have degrees and, certifications in economics and just one? That's a problem. We got more mental health people and clinicians, and we got one economics guy in here. Come on, that's a problem. We talked about that last night. That's a problem. And we need to fix that because we cannot move forward as a community broke. We cannot move forward and serve the needs of the community without money. That has to change. That narrative has to change. And that is actually step 2. If you have been following on Facebook and talking about reclaiming our communities, the first thing that I talked about was the unity, which is why we're here right now. The next piece is the economics. And bi'idhnillah, hopefully there will be a conference coming up on that very soon, inshallah ta'ala. That's important, man. We have money. We're not broke. But you let other communities tell it, black people, we African-American Muslims, we poor, we broke. I gave a lecture in Philly. I had an Arab sister stand up and say, don't talk about polygyny in this setting because leave that for the African-American Salafis. They are all on welfare. Leave that for them. That discussion is not for us. It's just a small idea of what people think about you. And we're not broke. We have money. Many of you are homeowners. Many of you live in homes. Many of you have very decent careers. And notice I didn't say jobs. I said careers. There's a difference between the two. But that part of our community is never highlighted. We never concentrate on the economics of our community because it's like a taboo discussion amongst us. And that has to change. And as we continue to move forward and claiming our communities, drawing lines in the sand, we're going to lose more and more people. And I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. If talking about economics doesn't, suit your fancy, then keep it moving, man. But we can't move anywhere broke. And this is what a lot of those communities, those break-off communities represent. Disunity and breaking off and establishing your own community, it represents poverty because you're pulling from the other communities to, meet a need that doesn't serve the needs of the community. You broke off and established your own little masjid, but you don't have enough money to sustain that. So while I'm the imam at 15th Street, right, United Muslim Masjid, I got people from Germantown calling down asking for sadaqah. People from Masjid Mukbil coming down because they had a family member die and they don't have any money to do the janazah services. So we got to pull out of our sadaqah to support a community that does not support the needs of the greater community. It's hustling backwards, man. It's hustling backwards. And that's a problem in our community because the economic stability is never discussed. We don't talk about economic stability. And two of the pillars of Islam require money. Hajj and zakat. Founded on money. I gave example after example last night of the Prophet ﷺ's community in need at a moment. And Abu Bakr cut the check. Uthman radiallahu anhu cut the check. And alhamdulillah, we had a couple of brothers and sisters last night. They cut checks. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Amen. May Allah place it in your scale of hasanat on the day when you are going to need it the most. Amen. So although Abu Bakr said this out of humility, he didn't want to dismiss. And I'll just do one more, inshallah ta'ala, and I'll conclude. How much time do I have left? Is that it? Am I over my time? Yeah. Nobody said anything, so I'm just going to keep going. 15 minutes? Okay. 15 minutes left or 15 minutes over my time? 20 minutes over. I'm 20 minutes over? All right. So I'll stop, inshallah. I'll stop here. I'll continue the rest on Periscope at some point, inshallah. I'll keep everyone posted. But then the next one, number 7, was going to be differing. And we covered that last night a little bit. But there's some narrations that I wanted to give to you guys. But alhamdulillah, let me just say before I conclude, man, like I love you guys, man. I love the community. I love the energy that I see here. I love it. I love it. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to put barakah in it. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us from those elements that are going to try to thwart it. Because those elements are there. They're there. Some from amongst us and some not from amongst us. You understand? And we have to be able to stand in our discomfort. We have to be able to stand in our discomfort, even if the whole world says, we're not with that. That's okay. I am. And that's all that matters to me. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for your time and your energy and your effort and, taking the time out of your schedules to come, inshallah ta'ala. Maybe 1 or 2 questions, inshallah. Fadal Habib. You don't have to stand up, Sheikh. I got you.
You were talking about like the unity. Like I said, I'm from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. What part of Philly?
Man, all over for a little time.
Nah, man, you gotta be from north, southwest. Come on, man. I've been in Philly long enough, man, to know that that's like somebody saying they from Manhattan. Come on, man. Nobody says they from Manhattan. Nah, go ahead. I'm joking.
Where I come from, like we from the streets. And a lot of my friends are in the streets.
Yeah.
Like, as far as the unity thing, to them, I'm a leader. To them, like I'm saying, I get called with the questions and stuff. If I don't know, I call one of the students or something like that. I got a chance to travel and stuff like that. So they look at me like, the fixer that's going on, they don't care about. Mm-hmm. When you bring up, yo, such and such, they're not worried about that. You know what I'm saying? I'm worried about them making the salat. I'm worried about them going to Jumu'ah. I'm worried about them getting out the streets. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How far am I know I asked about how far am I supposed to take certain things in my last couple of questions, but I can go to the trap, quote unquote, or whatever like that. I can talk to these particular people. Sometimes it's like, am I supposed to have this attitude like, man, listen, man, y'all gonna do what y'all gonna do or whatever like that? Should I keep it? You know what I'm saying? It make me feel bad. This is where I'm from. Like I'm saying, exactly what they doing. I was doing the same exact thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how much of myself am I supposed to put, or people like me, that you have these type of people? Sometimes I might be all they got. You understand what I'm saying? Like they don't got to call up to the sheikh. They might not ever go overseas. You understand what I'm saying? These people got money. My friends got a lot of money. They probably won't ever get on an airplane. Some of them have never been on an airplane. Mm-hmm. But have $100,000 or something like that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, where's my place in people like me on that scale when we're trying to bring the people together? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, the problems that the fitna that I
got you.
You know what I mean? Like they don't care about that. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. I'm glad you said that, and I want you guys to listen closely to what he said. He said in where he is on the level that he deals with the young guys in the hood. And if any of you, where Philly at? Raise your hands. Okay, Philly in the building. All right. You know young guys that are in the streets, got 1 foot in Islam, 1 foot in the streets. And like you said, a lot of them don't really care necessarily about all of this stuff. Many of them are just trying to survive. And for him, he's like an imam to them. Because he don't have both of his feet in that game no more. He kind of pulled out and they see him, and so now they begin to develop a respect for him. And while we sit at this place and may see him as nobody, but to his circle, he is that guy. And the young boys will look up to him and they will listen to him. And that's why I said empowering the people is important. Because if you are empowered, then you can take that and you can go influence people on your level.
Yeah.
If I feed you bits and pieces of information, I'm just keeping you at a certain place for my own selfish reasons. But the moment I empower you to assume a position of leadership no matter where you go in your own circle. So as it relates to, how much of yourself should you invest in them? You have to meet people where they are. Meet people where they are. That is the theme of the Mardiya show. Meeting Muslims where they are. If that's where you are, you're in a trap house, this is what you're doing, then I have to speak to you on your level. I'm not going to speak to you about other matters or whatever the case. Speaking to them about unity right now is really irrelevant. Making sure that they make 5 prayers a day. You pray Fajr? Come on, man, let's go pray. I'm not talking to you about unity. I'm not pulling you out of the trap house and bringing you into a broken Muslim house. This Islamic, community that we try to get together. Like the Prophet ﷺ told the Ansar when they came from Medina to give him bay'ah and they wanted to stay in Mecca. The Prophet said, go back to Medina. Then when you hear that we're being successful, then you come back. No, I'm not saying stay in the trap house. What I'm saying is, we don't need to introduce you to more problems. And so now you have layers of problems in your life. Let's concentrate on what's most important at this point, and that is making the 5 daily salat. And you making dua for them. And perhaps some of that would begin to penetrate the heart. And some of them might say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done with trapping. I'm done with hustling. Let me go with you to the masjid. Let me go here with you, and let me go to this conference. And invite them. Be invited, because they need to be around this atmosphere. Good energy breeds good energy. Bring them, yes. Now,
you spoke upon, sound like first.
You
spoke upon the people left off getting approved from the scholars. I asked this question because the etiquettes of when you take the lil from someone, there's 3, if I remember, there's 3 types of etiquettes that you could do. 1, they give you dalil. 2, they've been trustworthy of the dalil that they give you. Do you feel that some of the students, because of the position of who the person they're taking it from as a scholar, they trust his wording without asking for the dalil accordingly to it? Can you explain those levels of the etiquettes of getting knowledge from someone where it's not given dalil?
Good question. He said that we mentioned in the talk that we left off asking the scholars for dalil when they issue rulings. And he said that perhaps maybe some of these students, when they took this information from these scholars, maybe there was a level of trust that they had with these scholars where they didn't necessarily see it a necessity for them to ask for dalil at that point. And can I explain, what should be the adab or the etiquette of, the ethics, Islamic ethos in terms of getting information from scholars? If you were asking a question for your own personal self, Sheikh, is it permissible for me to divorce my wife in this particular situation? Or I divorced my wife like this, and is that permissible? And the Sheikh says, no, it's not permissible. You have to take her back and do it again. That's as it relates to you. If you have trust, if you are a lay person and you don't really understand dalil and things like that, then yeah, you are allowed to do that. You are allowed to blind follow to some degree. If there's even scholars blind follow other scholars. Scholars are asked about certain things at times and they don't necessarily have the response, but they remember the fatwa of another scholar and they will say, well, Sheikh bin Baz gave a fatwa about that, blah, 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 because they don't really know the detail at that moment to give you the dalil. And in that moment, without بغض النظر, without looking at all of the differences of opinion as it relates to blind following. There are some people who take the position that it's not permissible to blind follow under any circumstances, which is not necessarily realistic in our time, because new issues are coming up all the time. And at that very moment when you're asked about something, it might be an urgency for that person. And you don't telling the person, wait, let me go back and research the issue. It might not be realistic. The person needs a response right then and there in that moment. And the only thing that you know to give that person that is safe is the fatwa of another scholar that you know. And under those conditions, it may be permissible. And that's as it relates to your own personal situation. What we're talking about is what fragments an entire community. And you go into a sheikh and you're saying, Sheikh, what is your opinion about this imam? And this imam is influential in his community. This imam, has, benefited thousands of lives. Hundreds of thousands of people have benefited from this person. He has been responsible for constructing an entire community, a school, and all of these other things, that components that are attached to this particular imam. Going and asking the sheikh what is his opinion, what is his view about this particular imam because of something he said or did, and then have that sheikh give you an opinion without any dalil, and then translate that and put that out into the community without any dalil, that in itself is blameworthy. No, absolutely not. And there is no I trust the sheikh's opinion, but you're trusting the sheikh's opinion in a matter that affects the entire community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that when they are given some news of, communal issues and fear, and they rush, and they go and spread it. وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ, that if they would have returned it back to the messenger, وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ, and the people of knowledge and the people of aqd wal hil, the people that have knowledge and understanding of the situation, لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنْبِتُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ, then the persons who knows how to extract the knowledge from that situation and give it to the people in a manner that would keep the community stable, they would do that. And we don't do that. We go, we say, Sheikh, what's your opinion في فلان وفلان, ما رأيك في فلان أنه يقول كذا وكذا وكذا. شيخ هذا باطل من أبطل الباطل وهذا فلان ضال مضل وهذا كذا وكذا وكذا. No dalil, no ayah, no hadith, no statement of salaf, no nothing. And then we take that, translate it, and then post it on the internet and say, this is what the sheikh said. Not thinking about the repercussions of that, how that is going to impact families. As Abu Sama mentioned last night, they asked a particular sheikh about removing their children from the Islamic school. Right? And the sheikh said, without any fear of repercussions or how that was going to affect those people, pull your children out of the school. And put them where? In public school? And as I said, we lost 2 generations of children because those children at that time, my wife went to that school. My wife was 16 at that time, 17 years old. And as a result of that, the children that grew up with her, many of them are not even practicing Muslims. And if they are not practicing Muslims, then the children that they have are not practicing Muslims. That's 2 generations that we lost. My oldest son is 16. The same age my wife was when all of that fitness started with Abu Muslim. It's another generation of Islam. So many of the 3rd generations of children, the grandchildren, are now teenagers. Where are they? They're not in the masajid. Where are they? 2 generations of children lost as a result of you translating what a scholar said and putting it out on the internet for everybody to see. Until today, not one ayat, not one hadith, not one statement, narration of the Salaf quoted. Not one. Just pure opinions. And it is from the mark of wisdom to listen without acceptance. I can listen to your opinion all day long. I don't have to accept what you're saying. That is the mark of true wisdom. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for anything that we have done that has contributed to the fragmentation and the separation and division of our communities, because Allah knows there's a heavy burden that lies on the shoulders of people who are responsible for that. Now, you need time to change it? Or you're telling me my time is up? Or both? Go ahead.
All right, so my question is on 3 levels. On the first level, we have the layman that falls into this fitna, that falls into it, and then at some point, either the light turns on or they fall out of favor, but now they want to be back in that circle of, let's say, goodness or on the right way. The next level, we have the da'i, the student of knowledge, who was promoting and upon that, talking about other people, refuting other people, calling sheikhs overseas and all this type of stuff. And either he falls out of favor or the light turns on for him. And now how should we be towards that person? Are we just, because one of the characteristics on all 3 of these levels, the lack of islah or wanting to make islah, and the lack of apologizing to people that you have offended and refuted, talked about, marriages you broke up. And the third level is on the level of the mashayikh, those scholars that we know promote, talk about, refute, don't verify any information. How should we be towards them in terms of, we know that this sheikh, this is his MO. Do we just continue? I mean, we have to have a certain level of reverence, but at the same time, I'm not going to be sitting up kissing the scholars, because I know that he's on that stuff. So on these 3 levels, how do we deal?
Very detailed.
Scholars get off easy. But we tell everybody else head off. So what's your approach for them?
Okay. All right.
3 levels.
It's almost like one of the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ, or Abu Bakr asked him to go start collecting all of the things that the Quran was revealed on so they can start compiling it. And he said that if Abu Bakr would have asked me to carry Jabal Uhud on my back, it would have been easier. Okay, so let's start with the easiest of these 3 levels, and that is the lay people. We have to be forgiving. People have hurt other people. People have said things. I've had people come to me and say, I apologize, or whatever the case may be. I spoke about you in this regard, or I said this about you. I've had people send me emails and things like that. And I'm very uncomfortable with that because I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, if you said something about me, I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying. I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. Dawood Adib came to me, right? Let me just say it as it is, all right? And he's probably listening. Assalamu alaikum. He came to me, I was in New York about a month ago at Muhammad Munir's masjid on the Van Wyck. And I gave the khutbah there, and he was there in the crowd. And after the khutbah was over, and he came up to me and he apologized to me. At the time, just because once a person apologizes, now the fitna becomes yours. Because forgiveness is about you, not about the other person. You understand? So now that's my journey. He put that on me now. It's off of him now. He said, I apologize. I spoke about you in this regard. And as I said to him, I said, I never knew what you said about me. I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. So if you said something about me, if you said something about someone, you don't have to necessarily go to that person and say, I said this about you, unless the person actually knows that you said that. I never heard anything he said about me. You hear people say, oh, this one gave a lecture, but it's not that important to me. It's not a priority in my life. It got in line with the rest of the people that said something about it. It wasn't important to me. So that only agitates the person even more to go to someone and say, hey, I spoke about you in this regard, or I talked about you in that regard, please forgive me. And it's just like, well, you didn't need to tell me that. If I didn't know that ahead of time, you don't need to say that to the person. You just ask Allah for forgiveness. You go back in front of the people who you made that comment in front of, and you restore the person's honor in front of the people that you tore it down in front of. That becomes your responsibility. So Dawood Adib didn't need to come to me and apologize to me because I didn't know what you said about me, nor did I care. What you needed to do, Dawood Adib, if you're listening, because I know he's listening, What you need to do is go in front of the people who you made those comments in front of and restore my honor the way that you tore it down in front of those people. Because they were the ones that was burdened with hearing it, not me. That is tawbah for infringing on someone's honor, on their irad. You backbite someone, you talk about someone, you destroy someone's honor, you go back in front of the people. Don't make it easy on yourself and say, hey, I backbit you, I talked about you in this regard and I apologize. Nah, man, it don't work like that. Go back in front of the people who you made that comment in front of and restore my honor back to them. That's your journey for Tawbah. That's your journey. And as for me, once you apologize, now that becomes my journey, because now I have to learn how to humble myself and learn how to forgive you. Even if I don't trust you, even if I don't want to work with you, even if I don't want to share a platform with you, which I never will. Even if I don't, that doesn't mean I don't forgive you. Me sharing a platform with somebody doesn't mean that we're on the same page, or that I like the person, or I'm fond of the person. That's not what that means. Cooperation and being fond of someone is two totally different issues. I can not like you personally, but we are on the same trajectory and we're benefiting the community. We can sit in the same spaces. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not that type of person. Oh, I don't like you, so I'm not going to lecture alongside of you. Come on, that's childish, man. I don't have to. We work around non-Muslims all day long that we don't like. We work around Muslims that we don't like. Non-practicing Muslims, working around them is worse than working around non-Muslims. Because a non-practicing Muslim don't want you around them because you remind them of Allah. You remind them of Islam, which they're trying to run away from. And they make your life very difficult. A non-Muslim will remind you, hey, it's time for Salat, isn't it? Right. Absolutely. So as it relates to the lay people, when a person comes to you and apologizes to you, that now becomes your fitna. You now become responsible for learning how to forgive that person. And even if you don't want to forgive them at that moment, it still puts you on your journey to forgiveness. And the Prophet ﷺ got angry with Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu when him and Umar got into an altercation. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and Umar said something to Abu Bakr that angered him and upset him. And then when Umar came back to apologize, Abu Bakr didn't want to accept his apology. And then they both ended up going to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet turned to him and said that, you are the one who your companion came to you to apologize to you, and you would refuse to accept his apology. You refuse to accept his apology. So that is a journey. Someone wronged you and come to you and ask you for forgiveness. That now becomes your journey to learn how to forgive that person. And as I said to Dawood, I said, as of right now, I have nothing to say to you. I said, but that doesn't mean that I don't have to revisit this later on in my life. At some point, I do have to forgive you. At some point, I do have to, I got to confront that. And it can be all the way up into my deathbed, but I have to confront that. Habiba, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, she called Aisha on her deathbed. Hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. On her deathbed. And she said to Aisha, كَانَ بَيْنَنَا مَا يَكُونُ بَيْنَ الضَّرَائِرِ. She said, between us, what was normally between co-wives, we had our bickering, we had our fights, we had our arguments. And that normalizes the fights between co-wives and polygyny. Because we sometimes make polygyny seem like this. See, I knew it wasn't going to work. It's like, you would have had the same problems in monogamy. Shut up. You would have had the same problems in monogamy. Stop trying to make polygyny look like it's just this abstract, these people from Mars that want to practice this, non-conventional marital construct. You would have had the same problems in monogamy. It's marriage, period. Whether it's married to one wife or married to multiple wives. But she said, between me and you is what was normally between co-wives. Bayna dara'ir. She said, and I ask Allah to forgive me for anything that I did towards you, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you for anything you did towards me. Aisha said to her, Sararatni bima qulti. She said, you made me feel nice, you made me feel good about what you're saying. She said, Halalaki lillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you feel hil. May Allah forgive you and pardon you for anything that you did to me. And then Habiba called another co-wife, Salama, and then another one, because she realized that in our co-wifery we had some drama, and I didn't feel like apologizing at that moment. but now I'm on my deathbed and I'm getting ready to depart from this world, and it's important that I make sure that I rectify that. It's important because the angels will not take your deeds up to Allah. The angels will not bring the forgiveness of Allah down to you until you reconcile between your brother. The Prophet ﷺ said, يُفْتَحُ أَبْوَابِ الْجَنَّةِ يوم الاثنين ويوم الخميس ويغفر لكل عبد لا يشرك بالله شيئا إلا رجلا كان بينه وبين أخيه شحناء. The Prophet ﷺ said that the doors of Jannah are open on every Monday and every Thursday, and every servant of Allah that does not associate partners with Allah is forgiven on Mondays and Thursdays, except one man. Between him and his brother in Islam is shahna. There's some animosity, there's some beef, there's some problems between them that they didn't reconcile. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the angels, أَنظِرُوا هَذَيْنِ حَتَّى يَصْطَلِحَا. أَنظِرُوا هَذَيْنِ حَتَّى يَصْطَلِحَا. Hold off on those two until they reconcile. Hold off on those two until they reconcile. And you can think that that's a joke, and I'm going to take, I'm going to go to the grave with that. That's not something that you want to go to the grave with. You don't want to go to the grave having to worry about anybody other than yourself. I've done enough damage to my own life with my own sins than to have to be worrying about somebody else. Yawm al-Qiyamah calling for my hasanat. So at some point, as a layperson, when someone apologizes to you at some point you have to reconcile that. Number two, as it relates to the students of knowledge that translated those things and put those things out into the community, then their tawbah also is rectifying the situation that they messed up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَأَصْلَحُوا وَبَيِّنُوا. Except those who make tawbah, repent, وَأَصْلَحُوا, and they fix the situation, وَبَيِّنُوا, and they clarify that they were wrong. That's your tawbah. So if you were in the habit of translating what this sheikh said and you fragmented that community, then you have to go back to those websites, ask those brothers to pull those things down. You have to go back in front of, do your YouTube lectures, the same lectures that you did against this imam and that imam. And you need to go back and do some more lectures to retract your statement, retract your opinions, apologize for the damage that you've caused. And to be honest with you, a lot of people are not built like that. They're not going to do that, man. They much rather go on sujood, prostrate, ask Allah. If they do that, ask Allah for forgiveness. But guess what? That's not enough because you infringed on the lives of other people. And the sins are two types. There's the sin that is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafurur Rahim. Allah will forgive. Yaghfir subhanahu wa ta'ala wa la yubali. Allah forgives and He doesn't mind. But then there's the sin between you and another child of Adam. And that is shadid jiddan yawm al-qiyamah. That is not taken lightly. And the three areas of the lives of other people that we have to respect was clearly defined in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, Al-Muslim li-Muslim, kullu Muslim lil-Muslim, haramun, malahu, dammuhu wa irduhu. That the whole of a Muslim to another Muslim is sacred. His wealth, his honor, and his blood. You infringe on any one of those three. There's what is called al-qada yawm al-qiyamah. There's a number of obstacles we have to go through yawm al-qiyamah. And one of those stops is al-qada. Is to settle the score between those people that infringed on those three things that I just mentioned. You infringed on someone's honor. You infringed on someone's wealth. You infringed on someone's blood. You will be responsible for settling that Yawm al-Qiyamah before you can step foot in Jannah. That has to be settled. So, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا, except those who make tawbah, وَأَصْلَحُوا, and they fix the situation that they messed up, وَبَيِّنُوا, and they clarify that they were wrong. So, for those students of knowledge who are involved in that, that's your journey. And you got until the angel of the malakul maut comes to snatch your soul away. You have until that time to do that. And you can sit around and just make tawbah and just think and pray that everything will work itself out. And as for the community to welcome these individuals back into our good favor, then proceed with caution. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, خُذُوا حِذْرَكُمْ. Take your precautions as you go out. Take your precautions. So just because I forgive you doesn't necessarily mean we have to be besties because I forgave you. No, I forgave you, but I still play you feet. I still give you a distance because I seen your caliber. I see what you are made of. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, loving you is not in order to love you is not conditional on that I embrace you and bring you into my intimacy. All right, the Prophet ﷺ said, "La yuldagu mu'minun fi juhrin marratayn." The believer is not stung in the same hole twice, meaning we learn from our mistakes. We put you in a position of leadership. We gave you, like, this is a privilege that you guys are giving me to sit here and listen to what I'm saying. That is an amana. That is a trust. You gave somebody a trust. One of the sisters from Elizabeth gave me a bean pie, man. Mashallah, may Allah reward her generously. Mm-hmm. But that's an amana for me to accept food from somebody that anything could have been in there. She could have crushed up some glass. And I'm not giving you guys no ideas, but you can crush up glass until it becomes powder. Mm-hmm. And put it in something a person would never know it's there. Yep. And it will rip your person's insides up. Exactly. I didn't know it was in there. So me even receiving food that was cooked in somebody's house is a trust. There's a level of trust that I had with her to accept that and to eat that and share that with my family. That's the same thing that you guys are doing when you sit here and you listen to an imam talk. You are opening yourself up to receive information from this individual with the hopes that what they're saying is truthful, trustworthy, and that the information is given from a place of goodness, from their heart. That's a level of amana, and we give that to students of knowledge, and they abuse that for their own selfish agenda. And then after they make Tawbah, we should just give you that platform back and give you that opportunity to do that? Nah, man. I'm sorry. The last thing is as it relates to the scholars, and I think Brother Muhammad Munir Mufti was very, very detailed with that. And yes, they are responsible. They are responsible. And it's not that we, don't, one of the brothers said that, we kind of let the scholars off that are involved in a lot of this. We kind of let them off the hook and, we go after the people who, were basically the branches of that, and we never go to the asl, the root of it. Right? Because number one, the honor of the scholars that's a station, a position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, and that should be dealt with in the manner that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to deal with people who are in those positions. Secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave those scholars those positions. And if they abuse those positions, then they have to deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to be honest with you, since about 2002, we've seen scholars come and go. Allah deals with them in His own way. We've seen scholars rise to the top, and we've seen those same scholars who rose to the top, min asfal as-safilin, the lowest of the low. I remember a time we were sitting in, there was a lecture going on in Masjid Qiblatayn, or Masjid Quba, one of them. And Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi was giving a lecture at the time. And someone asked him about Sheikh Fali al-Harbi. And Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi said, هل رأيتم جبل الأحد? Have you ever seen Jabal Uhud? He said, yeah. He said, رأيتم جبل Uhud? You seen Jabal Uhud? He said, الفالح عندنا كجبل أحد. He said, Sheikh Fali to us, scholars, is like the mountain of Uhud. And then 3-4 years later, boom, Sheikh Rabi'a writes an entire book, 21 ways that Sheikh Fali al-Harbi resembles the Rafidah. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. It's just like, can you really take this serious? Really? Can you really? And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, جَعَلَ بَأْسَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ. Allah places their animosity between them and they destroy each other. We don't have to say anything. We just protect ourselves from it. No. We cushion ourselves from the blow. No. But as it relates to attacking them, as it relates to going after them, yeah, individually you have a right to defend yourself. If a sheikh says something against you without any dalil, when Sheikh Ubaid said whatever he said about me without any dalil, I went to the Mufti, Sheikh Abdul Aziz, Ali Sheikh, in Riyadh. And the Mufti asked me, He said, did he have any dalil to say what he said? I said, no. I went to Sheikh Salih Al-Haydan, who's retired, but was from the Hayat Kibar al-Ulama, used to live around the corner from me. And I asked him, Sheikh, this is what he said about me. The Sheikh said, did he bring any dalil? I said, no. He said, did he speak to you before he said what he said? I said, no. He said, then write a refutation on what he said and post it on the internet just like he did. I said, well, how am I going to do that? He's a scholar. I'm just a student of knowledge. He said, he doesn't have a right to say anything against you without speaking to you first. Hearing your side of the story, to write something and post it on the internet for the world to see it, and then you sit there and accept that and not defend yourself. He said, this is not part of our religion. He said, write a refutation on what he said and post it, translate it, post it on the internet just like he did. So as a student of knowledge, you have the individual right to defend yourself. I don't need permission. I didn't need, with all due respect to the Sheikh, I didn't need his permission. I did that for y'all. Because when I do that, you're going to say, oh, he's disrespecting the Sheikh. And then even when I say a Sheikh said that it was okay, signed off on it, well, he's not part of the Kibar al-Ulama anymore, and we'll come up with every excuse in the book. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِيَّرَوْا كُلَّ آيَةٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَا. And if they saw every sign, they still not going to believe. But I wanted to play their game, play by their rules, just to show you they don't even respect their own rules. I played by the rules, just to show you that they don't play by their own rules. What scholar said that you could do that? Okay, this Sheikh said it. Well, he's not this, or he's not that, or whatever. It doesn't matter what I do. You're still going to find fault with it. But as it relates to the scholars, we don't have to be disrespectful to them. We can individually, if you feel up to it that you want to defend yourself, you are more than entitled to do that. Especially if someone says something against you with no dalil, you have a right to defend yourself. However, I am not going to resort to disrespecting a scholar or trying to remove him from the status that Allah gave him. Allah gave him that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لِلَّهِ مَا أَعْطَى وَلِلَّهِ مَا أَخَذْ. To Allah belongs what he gives, and to Allah belongs what he takes. I don't have to take that from you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave you the position, he will take it from you. And that might not happen in this life. It might happen in the next life. And we might have to deal with your fitna until you're gone. As Allah says in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. We have made some of you a fitna for others. Won't you just be patient? So sometimes we just got to live with it. Those statements, those that are posted on the internet, they're not going to ever go anywhere. And we have to live with that. It's part of our narrative. It's okay. When we write our history, that's part of our narrative. The good, the bad, the ugly. Yes, last one. We're done. It says, yeah. MashaAllah. Allah Akbar.
You know, 5 to 6 people who work, they're all women. You work 2 to 3 jobs. One job pays for the buildings and what's going on. And as soon as it comes that there's firstly there's no man in charge because they always think that everything has to start with the men. You know, in every situation. And then the fact that we have not limited to anybody. If you are a Muslim child, this place is for you because there is no place for you as an orphan. You know, if you are a special needs person.
We're going to have an orphanage for Salafis, right? For the Salafi children. Everything has to be Salafi labeled, right?
So this is what I'm saying. I fear that, you know, because we're doing this alone and that we keep it under wraps at the moment, I've just exposed it, mashallah. But, you know, like, how do we prevent from it being that we have to pick a side? That they try to force us to pick a side and not tear it down because it's to benefit Muslim children who don't have a place. It's to benefit especially don't have a place. Like I told you before, you know, mashallah, Allah called my son, but I could not find a school for him at all. They didn't have a place for him to go that adhered to what the circumstances were. So it's either they were too special or they weren't special enough.
Special enough. Allahu Akbar.
You know, and that them like, where do I go? So at this entity, you know, another one of the aspects of this is we have the building is so large, we could use the help, but the fear of, you know, having big views and little eyes. Like, you know, I did
carrying another mountain on my back.
What city are they? Or what
Philadelphia.
state? Okay. Because I'm in Michigan. I work for Human Services for 18 years. So to hear some Muslims are getting some stuff like that done, alhamdulillah.
Oh no, Philly is on the ball with that. There's a lot of brothers and sisters in Philly in terms of the social component of the communities, the needs of the community from the social aspect. They're on the ball with that.
Sure.
And but like she said, the challenge is now when you want to open that up. Let's say you want to invite a speaker to do a fundraiser. You know, now the community forces you to invite this particular person because if you invite this one, no one's going to show up. And let me tell you something. That is something that is specific to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a very cliquish city. I mean, all the way down to where you going to Jumu'ah. I've been in Philly since 2010. Ain't nothing you can tell me about the city I don't know. They're very cliquish. And that's just another challenge that, you know, you as, you know, in your profession and what you're trying to do, these are challenges that are going to expose themselves and you have to learn how to navigate around it. I mean, Philly is so cliquish. It's like, where y'all going to Jumu'ah today? Or I'm going up Germantown. Or I'm going over Southwest. I'm going down South Philly, you know. And we're gonna go to Jumu'ah based upon where the majority is going to Jumu'ah. It's sick. It's sick. Y'all going to the lecture? Yeah, how many of you trying to rally? You really want to go, but you're not going to go if your clique not going. It's sad, man. It's a sick mentality. And that is specific to Philadelphia. I haven't seen that. I'm from Jersey. I haven't seen that. We're more individualists. New Yorkers, definitely, hands down, individualists. They don't move in cliques. It's like, you ain't going? Okay, well, I'll see you. I'll tell you about it when I get back. I'm going, right? So that is, you know, a dynamic that, you know, is particular to Philly. I don't think it's necessary. What we did was we exacerbated it with the whole Salafi thing. But that the origin of that was there even before the cliquish thing was there, even before the whole Salafi thing. But I get it, I understand, but you have to not necessarily pick a side. The side that you pick is for the benefit of what you're doing. And if you believe bringing this speaker to do a fundraiser or welcoming in these children from this place is a benefit to what you're doing, then that's what you have to do. And your tawfiq is with Allah, not with whether or not the people agree with what you're doing or support what you're doing. And I know a lot of businesses in Philly, unfortunately, because they don't have the support of the people, the businesses crumble under that lack of support. So in those type of environments, man, you know, you just got to put your foot down, get up at the third of the night, pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you tawfiq, and inshallah, you'll be successful. And that's your test. That's your test. Because maybe Allah is going to test you to see how bad do you really want it? How much of your discomfort are you willing to stand in to have this? All right? Anything that is good is worth struggling for. If you don't struggle for it, then you don't deserve to have it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. You guys have been great. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Anybody got to check out their rooms? It's time to check out now.
Yeah, it's checkout time, inshallah. If you can make your way up to your room if you haven't already checked out, then you might want to go ahead and do that now, inshallah ta'ala.